Hello, I'm Jasmin Garcia. I am the Arts Integration Specialist for Twin Rivers Unified School District. And I do have a coworker here with me. Her is Jacqueline White, and she's the Arts Integration Curriculum Facilitator. So she's here to help. So I'm a little nervous. So I'll try to follow the protocol. I am a theater person too, so I do a lot of improvising. So, okay, so a little bit of background. I said I am the Arts Integration Specialist. This is my second year. I work for Twin Rivers, which is I believe four, right? Brand new, second year, that were merged, districts that were merged together. And we have a combination of urban, suburban, and rural areas. Yes, in Sacramento.
It used to be North Sac, Del Paso Heights, Grant, Giant Union, and Rio Linda.
Yeah. See, she knows more about the background. But my job this year was I would work at 3 of the schools in our district, and I would work there once a week for the whole year. I work with 7 classrooms, so I see basically about 500 students a week. I am the cart lady, so I have my 2 carts and I just roll through the classroom, and everyone knows me, and so I'll go in, and what I do basically is I work with the teacher with the core standards that they're working with, and I bring in the art standards. So what we do is we make this combination. The kids see me as the art teacher, which is fine, but I do try to explain to them that we don't just do visual art. I'll do dance, I'll do theater, and I'll do music with them as well, and we integrate both. So for the example that I have, just to kind of give you a heads up, the standards that I'm using for this one is we're doing with math. And I take usually the beginning of the school year, and I do this with the 4th through 6th grade. We take the standards of the geometry standards of line and angles, and I integrate them with the element of art, line, and we talk about both of them. I try to tell the students, here is the math standards, and I want to know if you know your lines and your angles and your geometry, but then now I'm going to integrate and show you how we can take the element of line in visual art and show you how we can combine both of them equally. So that's what I do with this lesson. And I also tie in a music standard to go with it, because this lesson is actually musically inspired. I tell the students that in line you also see motions, that artists will hear music, and I tell them, if you hear zigzag, if you see zigzag inside the work, what do you hear? And they're like, oh, that's like maybe hip hop rap or rock. And I'm like, yeah, okay. What if you see more smooth lines and curvy? They're like, oh, that's like classical or instrumental. And one kid said country. I was like, oh, okay. So, but it's just taking that experience of, here is the music, how can we combine all of those standards together? And so the impact that the students have on these is that what I do is when I work with these students, like I said, I work with different areas. One of the schools is high African American population, high EL population, and another school, high Ukrainian and Russian EL students. I had one student who doesn't speak any English, but he got this lesson, and he drew it all over his binder, and the next day he just was like going like this to me, and I'm like, oh, good, you know, and I'm like, I don't know how, I'm not, you know, I'm Mexican, I barely can speak Spanish, so I'm trying to, so I'm like, yeah, good job, you know, and he's like, you know, to me too. So so I knew that he liked this lesson, and not only him. When I do this lesson in the classroom, the teachers are hooked. The students come after me and run. I want to do art. I love art. Oh my gosh, I had so much fun. What are we going to do next, Ms. Garcia? What are we going to do next? And I'm like, well, I'm not quite sure yet. I got to talk to the teacher, you know, but I'm glad, you know. So the impact is high on the students. It's not only helps them academically, but it keeps them engaged. It helps their critical thinking skills. And also, it has them express themselves in a way that maybe they're not used to expressing themselves, where I usually hook a lot of students who have trouble coming to school, who come to school late, who don't want to do anything, who speed through a test and be like, I'm done. the teachers have used this as, hey, take out your line journal. You can draw your lines if you want to. Oh, okay. They'll take time during their tests and they'll create their lines, and then they'll look at it and they look at the art in such a different way. Their eyes are open and they love it. They do. And I can't express how much this has changed a lot of the students and how they see art and how they see school. Culturally relevant teaching wise, what I do specifically with this lesson is I make the music, I choose the music specifically for them. I don't know, have you guys ever heard of the Vitamin String Quartet? Have you guys ever heard of them? Okay, write it down. If you work with the kids, the Vitamin String Quartet.
Like vitamin?
The vitamin, like vitamins that you take, string, quartet. I know, sorry. What they do is they take popular music like Lady Gaga, for instance. They'll take Paramore. They'll take even the Guitar Hero. You guys are familiar with Guitar Hero? They'll take songs from there, and what they do is they make it into a string quartet. So all it is just instrumental music. That right there is my hook with them. Now, I take it where it's culturally relevant to them through their generation. How am I going to hook these students? And they're like, oh, I'm so sick of Beethoven. I had students do that before. Or I'm tired of hearing Mozart. And, you know, or I've already heard this in 2nd grade, because I get the older kids and I'm like, well, have you heard this? And I'll put it and they'll be like, yeah. And you hear them like, hey, was that Fireflies from, you know, from Train? And I'm like, yeah. And they're trying to sing their words, and they're really getting, you see them moving and their hands are moving and they're getting that. Now they're meeting that music standard. They're creating and they're listening to that music and they like it. And they're like, well, what is that? And I'm like, well, that's orchestra music. That's true. But I've always heard it like this. I go, yeah, but you haven't heard it like this, you know? And they're like, I like that. And, you know, and they get really into it. The teachers will get on Pandora, type in Vitamin String Quartet, and then they'll let the kids take tests with it. And it's free radio. So it just plays music that's similar to that. And the kids, quiet, they're in it, and they're just like, they're listening, and you see their head bobbing and they're getting into it. So that's how I kind of bring in that, you know, culturally relevant, make it culturally relevant for them. I also, when we talk about the 4 R's, I really talk about respect with them. Now, a lot of times students don't know how to respect artwork. And of course, kids want to touch. I still want to touch. And what happens is I tell them, I said, when you're looking at artwork and you're looking at student artwork or you're looking at famous art, we want to respect it. We want to respect, you know, you keep your opinions, but we want to respect and not touch things. And so we kind of go over that as well. And so basically that's what I do with the 4s. And then, did I get all those on your thing? Okay. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, it says just to describe the kind of work. I'm just going to kind of go through the PowerPoint just to show you if I was in the classroom, what I would do. And I am a visual person, so I like to show the pictures, and I would hope, I try to meet all the multiple intelligence. That's something I'm also learning, which arts integration does. Okay, so what I do is I set up the classroom. I am very blessed to have most of the rooms have smart boards where I can actually take a pen from down here and I can draw and write. Here's the angle, here's, you know, what do you see? So I set up the classroom specifically like this, where I have the vocabulary for geometry on one side and I have the element of line vocabulary on the other, because I don't want them next to each other. So when I'm talking, I said, okay, we're going to go to this later. Let's focus on this. And a lot of the times I'll stand in front of the definitions, because most of the time when I'm with these classes, it's more of a reteach before their test. And I'll stand in front of the definitions and say, okay, what's a ray? What's a line? You know, what's, and I go, don't look at the words. Okay, so this would be, and I'm mobile, so you gotta, it's wrinkled. And so here's my vocabulary, and we go over the ray, the line, the intersecting. We talk about specifically the intersecting. When I talk about the artwork, we say, okay, show me intersecting. They show me with their hands. I say, you know, in the artwork we're going to see artists don't intersect, they overlap. We're going to now take it from 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional, and I kind of go into that. So I tell them to keep that in mind. So we go through everything and all the angles, and then, well, let me see. No, I did it. I stayed right there. There we go. Okay. Then this is the other side, and I tell them, I said, we're going to go over just the 5 basic elements of line: horizontal, vertical, diagonal, zigzag, curved. And then we go into, I usually tell them we're going to go into the appearance once we get into the artwork. And I do specifically do a lot of color to bring it out so you could see the different ones. Again, you have the EL students, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. I try to show the different colors that you can, the different ways you can do it. And, oh, sorry.
No,
I don't know.
These will be posted.
Oh,
so,
yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
So you don't have to take.
That's true. I forgot about that.
Oh, sorry. Yes, it is. So what I do is I start off going through. I'm only showing you a couple of the slides that I chose. Now, I use Pedro Lucena. He's a Brazilian artist. Oh, I see somebody nodding their head. Yay! He is one of my favorite line artists. And I tell the kids, we go over his work. Now, if you do choose to use him, you have to make sure that you weed out a lot of his work. You can't just go in there and go, oh, Pedro Lucena, okay, kids, here's Google, and you're like, oh, the kids are gonna, you know, because you have to do it at home, because most likely you can't access it at school. But he has a lot of good work that does, you can use it. So what I do with this is on the smart board, I'll say, okay, what do you see? And I have them talk, and then they tell me, and then they say, well, I see an acute angle. Well, where do you see an acute angle? They'll tell me, and I'll mark it. Where do you see obtuse? They tell me. They say the diagonals, and so on. So we go through the artwork. We go through, I want another piece of his artwork, talk a little bit about the color. They tell me what they see, and we discuss it. And usually I play this through with music first, so that they kind of gets them in the mood. Then what we do is I have them practice. I talk about, I want you to practice doing lines within lines. I want you to practice try not to create something. Now specifically I use this one because he didn't quite follow directions, but I didn't want to discourage him to not keep up with this one, because he was not supposed to think, I'm going to draw this, I'm going to draw that. He was supposed to listen to the music and let the music inspire what he was going to create, which was, we go into abstract. I want to see some abstract art, not what he's doing. His work is not abstract, you know. So we go over, but I tell him, I said, you know, you did a good job. You could see the lines and everything. So we do the practice. The practice work is the ones that aren't mounted. And then they usually take that home for homework. So I do give them homework, which they like this homework. Ooh, I like this homework. This is one of the other schools we do have an orthopedically impaired school that also, Jackie, can you word it better than me? Orchard.
One of the sites of the 3 sites is a fully inclusive orthopedically impaired site.
Yes.
So it's called Orchard Elementary, and it's a K6. Actually, K8 will be next year.
Mm-hmm.
We have multiple models for that in our district, but so the students are not deselected from the classroom based on their gifts and talents. They are all included, with the exception there might be 2 or 3 students that have 2 severe disabilities and they're in the classroom. But so everyone is in a classroom.
So I just gave her.
They are in their ability range.
Right, and so we just gave her a bigger piece and taped it down for her so she can draw. Then we also hold an informal assessment where we sit in a kind of like in a circle, and we talk about the artwork, we talk about the music, and so on. And they talk about their piece. What do they see out of it? How did it make them feel? What lines and angles did they use? And they share. This is the 4th grade classroom.
And I'm just going to jump in. This is a great opportunity. The way this model is working is really as Jasmin as a coach. So she's teaching the teachers how to be integrating. So what happens at this point is the teacher is sitting in the classroom also with her, and the teacher can be assessing with their class list, oh, you know, Johnny said that was a perpendicular line, he knows that standard, we're good. So it really works as a great model because the teachers are seeing what students know. They're doing a real authentic assessment. Because
they're the ones giving the test. I'm not. I give them an assessment, but I don't give them the district test. So on this picture, I had her facilitated. And I'm more of just kind of in the background. Then what happens is once they have their homework piece, which you can see hers is right here, I tell them to bring that out, keep that out, and then now they work on their final piece. Then I have them, on some of them, now a lot of the times you could see some of the work that's mounted doesn't have an index card to it is because I'm also learning, and I adapted and said, oh, I need to have, before I had them write it in their journal. Well, how am I going to show that? I want to put them up in a gallery and show what they had. So then I take it from them writing it in their journal to them writing it on an index card. So here he's giving it a title, and he's telling me what lines and angles he used and a little bit about his picture. He's doing that, and there's a couple that have that as well. For example, here. So they did their drawing. They did it in pen because, again, I tell them they cannot erase. So I give them a pen. And then they write about their piece, and they title it, and they make it their own. Then just to show you, I do extensions on this. This one, if you can't see, is actually going to be a pyramid. So what we did is we created now a piece where we went into element of shape. We talked about organic and geometric shape. We talked about two-dimensional and three-dimensional. Then we created a three-dimensional pyramid, hung it on a string, and then dangled it. And they all had their different line drawing on it. So now I took that extension of, okay, I'm going to go into geometry, difference between the art shapes and geometry shapes, geometric shapes. Here's the difference, and then combining them together. What I did is I did a I do, you do kind of a little bit, we practiced. So what I did was I demonstrated for them, and I did a demonstration. I don't think I have mine with me, but I would practice demonstrating, and then I'd give them, so I'm going to let you go. I usually don't want to interrupt you. I'm going to let you go for 5 minutes. You can only draw when the music starts, and when the music stops, I'm going to have you stop. And then I have them look at their piece. And I would leave extra pieces of paper because I don't want them to feel frustrated if they messed up, because I told them they couldn't erase. So I walked them through it, told them to take, and I'm telling you, I did this with adults. They didn't get it, so I had to come back and change it. And the reason, using Pedro Lucena, as soon as they see his work, boom, they get it. So I had to change it and go, okay, I'm going to start with him. I'm going to show him the first day, because it's about a 3-day lesson. I'm only in there for 40 minutes. So I started off with, boom, here, this is what I want it to look like. Look at his work, look at his lines, look how clean. I always say that. Ooh, nice clean lines when I'm walking around. Ooh, I like your lines, those are clean. Or, and then they, ooh, look at your lines within lines, they're clean. And so then the kids are slowing down. And I tell them, we don't want to see intersecting, we want to see overlap. And I have them repeat that. Artists don't intersect, they overlap, and they say it over and over. I said, we're going to go jump and then continue. Make your parallel lines, jump. And by using the smartboard, and not everyone has it, I'm able to show them, see how he jumps, and then I continue. And see how and I demonstrate. Look at here, look at how he does lines within lines here, and I draw with the pen on the artwork. So, yes?
I think you mentioned it. What's the range of grade levels that you get to work with them?
I work with a K through 8. I work with K through, well, next year will be 8th. Now it's K through 7th. But this lesson we can use 4th through 6th. So.
Oh, just a clarification on the function of the music in this lesson. I think I heard you say it helped them to get from wanting to do something representational to something. Could you just clarify that?
Sure. So what I tell them is to listen to the music and not to go in there not thinking that they're going to draw like Pedro Lucena, that they're not going to draw a bird or they're not going to draw a butterfly. Listen to the music, and that's why I do the homework. Just draw me a line across your page. Draw me another parallel line to that. Now overlap that line with 2 parallel lines, and then now go ahead and begin. And then once I have them stop, I said, listen to the music, listen to it. If it's telling you, if it's kind of fast, upbeat, then go ahead and do zigzags, but make them clean. So you don't get this all over the page. So, yeah. Anything else? Yes, Jose. No, you're fine.
On the writing part, is it just free writing for them? Is there a certain, are there sentence frames that you just provide, or language objects that try to meet? I ask, because some of them is very nice vocabulary, like in a sense.
I did that on purpose, yeah. I did that on, depending on the teacher at the grade level. That one's a 5th grade. They just did a writing piece. And I said, can I have them do a writing piece with that? And then they but I really believe in them just kind of exploring and wanting to, and not correcting their artwork or their piece in that way. I do it with them thinking, okay, I really want you to get into it. What did you feel? What did you? That's why we had that class discussion, and they kind of hear each other thinking, and then when they go back to write their own, it gets into this whole, like, it's deep, huh? So yeah, so the teacher helps out in that part a lot at that one.
For you to describe what you're seeing in the work. So we're having a conversation amongst ourselves, and Jasmin gets to eavesdrop on our conversation.
So speak loud.
So what are unless we see the writing, we don't have any way of knowing whether or not they've embraced those concepts just by looking at the work. So I think that it would be nice to have more of the writing to see how the students overall were addressing that particular standard.
I'll just interject. I don't think Jasmin showed it, but she does have.
I'm going to try to find it right now.
Yeah, an assessment sheet where the students have a drawing, and then they identify the lines and angles that they see in it. So that's part of the formative assessment.
So it's a scaffolding piece within the particular unit.
And then I was going to tell her to show you the slide where the kids were all sitting in a half semicircle, and that's when, I mean, that's the best assessment, is when your students are sitting around and they say, okay, where's the proof? And everyone is pointing and assessing from their drawing. And that's what they were doing in that slide.
Exactly, but unfortunately,
so
we're looking
at
art,
but
right.
That's the thing, is that when we're looking at student work, that because we can't hear that conversation, we can only go by what we see.
Well, and
so that's kind of where we're looking at.
My question is, you have to decide as a teacher, what's your purpose of doing the artwork and hanging it up? Is it to show the practice of line usage, or is it to show their understanding of the math concept? If that was the case, then this would be their piece, and as a result, they would have to show probably what your formal assessment is, where they've said, this is the arrow that points to the line, the angle to this or to that. So as teachers, I feel like we always have to make those decisions of where is this going, what's the purpose, and who's going to see it? Is this for parents to see that their kids know that, or is this for the kids to see the usage and application?
Well, and I think that is where we are with assessment right now, and not just in art, but in this setting, in art. Can you do both? And that's the challenge to a teacher, to improve their practice, move that practice deeper. How could that be done? And maybe that could be done by labeling. A student could label their own work, that's one piece, and reinforcement of the children knowing the standards is a formative assessment process. And having the students know what they know helps the teacher know they know.
I'm just thinking how fun it would be to give them each a piece of tracing paper to put on their piece, and then label, circle a spot on the tracing paper that's showing a right angle or a
Well, that's a good idea.
this
Tracing
one,
paper.
that
And then keep that next to it.
Yeah, and then
Kind of like the one format where you had the two artworks, one that had the art.
it
and
could
one
be
that
like
had
taped over it at the top so you could lift it up.
yeah.
That's a good idea, because I actually thought of just taking these and just running them through the copy machine so they would have a copy, their original artwork that you don't want to mess with because it's the original artwork, and then a copy that they can mark up and go, in blue are all my parallel lines, in green are all my perpendicular lines.
Right, so then they'd be writing those words.
And I think that the important piece, for me, as I look at it, I think it's, I love the fact that the art can stand on its own.
Yeah.
And that it's important for it. And so as a teacher, I make choices when I want it to demonstrate certain things. So if I'm looking at it from a parent perspective or an audience perspective, I may want to display the work as its artistic endeavor.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And then I may display it a second time with the math pieces involved in it. And so it allows it to be shown in both an artistic way and then in a mathematical way. So bringing both of those things together.
This is the assessment that I do. Here's the artwork, and of course I got to make sure to know who I got it from. And then I have them; they have to label and point an arrow. Say here's the vocabulary words. Here's intersecting lines. Here's parallel lines. Here's perpendicular. Here's acute angle. you know, those. And because I do this in the beginning of the school year, as an assessment, I'm not there, so I don't really get to keep, and I should have. So that's something I need to make sure to make a note of, is that I need to ask for those back and keep them for my own record.
To see where they're at.
Yeah.
Because you have to remember, Jasmine is not in the classroom. She's a mobile teacher visiting 40 minutes to another teacher's classroom.
And
I'm the
nice
cart
thing-
lady.
But the nice thing about that is that they can have parallel portfolios.
Right.
They can have the math portfolio that is utilizing the artwork
Right.
as part of that demonstration, and they have then the art portfolio where it just becomes that particular, addressing those particular elements within the standard. So it's a collection of both of their learning within both disciplines.
Well, and we
Yeah.
talked about the writing component too, how Jose asked, do you have sentence frames? Because that's huge for our schools, I know. And so that's the next step. I see that as, you know, either giving them guidelines for writing or comparing and contrasting, which one does have the lines, which one doesn't. So there's neat extensions to this too.
And the integration piece, that's where the general ed or classroom teacher can really take over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it require the art specialist or integration coach to come in to do that? The teacher can actually be learning and training on that as well at the same time, the art standards, and how to incorporate that into writing.
I don't know if I'm allowed to ask a question. Have you seen a lot of teachers take off with this, like the next time you'll come in and they'll have done an extension to something you showed them without?
Some have given me the idea of like, oh, I didn't even think about actually having the one that does the facility, we're sitting on the ground.
Yeah.
She had her students, I had them journal write, well, she had them type it up and mount it on their work, and I was like, oh, I didn't even think about doing that.
Yeah.
So then I went ahead and I did that. They'll come back. A lot of times the students will just show me personally, look at what I'm doing, and then I'll ask them, hey, where's your acute angle? Where's the, you know, and they'll, you know, so that, but the teachers a lot of the times use this lesson as more of a engagement piece for them. So if the kids are getting out of hand and they need just a timeout or a break, she'll say, take out your line drawing book. And then they'll just doodle.